Today you guys are going to be seeing what happens once your body consumes glucose and how it's turned into the energy-rich molecule ATP that's used for cellular energy. Let's take a gander. Remember, your body consumes glucose in the form in order to get energy. However, this molecule is unusable by cells. Think of it this way. It's kind of like how crude oil can't be used by your car. It has to be changed into gasoline, which can be used to fuel your car. The process that your cells use to do this is called respiration, turning glucose into usable ATP. Respiration. What is respiration? It takes place in the mitochondria. Remember, many cells have mitochondria, which can generate the ATP. Is the process of taking glucose and oxygen and turning it into cellular energy. Once again, in a simple form, respiration is in the mitochondria, taking glucose and turning it into ATP. How does respiration work? Glucose is brought into the cell. You bring in glucose through consumption. From there, it'll go into your digestive tract and eventually enter the bloodstream where it can be brought to all of your cells. It is then transported to the mitochondria. The cells will absorb the glucose and deliver it to the mitochondria. They do this through gateways in the cell membrane. Oxygen is brought in from environment. Respiration needs oxygen to work, hence why you need to breathe in constantly. The oxygen is then put into the red blood cells, which is then also delivered to the cells as need them so they can perform respiration. Glucose is broken down, turning ATP to ATP. The process of glycolysis in the TCA cycle is taking glucose and using it to power ADP into ATP. This is a long process, but you just need to recognize that glucose is used to fuel the change. As a result, ATP, carbon dioxide, and water are made. Remember, once again, high energy ATP is made from low energy ADP. This is made from the burning of glucose. Repeat. Cells are doing this at a very high rate. The more active a cell is, the more mitochondria it'll have. For example, a heart cell has lots and lots of mitochondria as it's constantly beating and pumping. Reactants of respiration. Oxygen and glucose. Remember, the reactants or starting materials are glucose and oxygen. Products of respiration: CO2, water, and ATP. Remember, you breathe out CO2 because it's the waste of respiration. This CO2 gas will then be taken out into the atmosphere and used by photosynthesis. Another product is ATP, and lastly, water. Interesting way to remember. Kind of why breathing is called respiration. You're breathing in oxygen to fuel respiration and breathing out the waste, which is CO2. You breathing in and out is kind of like fueling a fire, taking in oxygen to keep the fire going and breathing out the CO2 so it doesn't smother out. You breathe harder when doing exercise. Your body is using up ATP fast and needs to bring in oxygen to keep up. When you run hard or do physical exercise, you breathe harder as you're trying to increase your rate of respiration. This is why trained athletes, when going at a moderate pace, don't breathe so hard or take longer to go, because they're used to that level of work. How does this work with photosynthesis? Photosynthesis and respiration form a cycle, hence why plants can survive without other organisms. Plants are nifty because they can do both photosynthesis and respiration, having one's products fuel the other one's reactants. The cycle. The cycle that you see here is the cycle of photosynthesis and respiration. Make sure you have it in your notes because it will be a handy tool to remember the products and reactants of each cycle.